عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وأرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اجتنابه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه وادخلنا برحمتك في عبادك الصالحين يا رب العالمين. Welcome everybody to our Hajj and Umrah halaqa inshallah, the journey of the soul. طبعا we have done this before in this masjid actually, and we've done it in the other masjid, but I think it's important to mention something very important when it comes to the halaqat of ilm and ilm in general. طبعا we've gone through the fawaid of ilm, and we know that النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم has told us that من سلك طريقا يلتمس به علما سهل الله له به طريقا إلى الجنة. That whoever seeks a path of knowledge, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make the path to Jannah easy for that person. Well, طبعا we know that the journey of ilm, it's a tough journey because we've become accustomed to attending lectures maybe that must be entertaining, that must be enjoyable, that must be new information. But I think it's important to notice and to point out that al-ilm is something that you have to review. Al-ilm is something that you have to go over. People always love to talk about Imam al-Bukhari and his memorization. طبعا it is a mu'jiza, it's a miracle. Like people forget that Imam al-Bukhari used to review his ahadith. Imam al-Bukhari didn't come out of his mother's womb with hadith in his brain. And he didn't memorize it once and that's it. Imam al-Bukhari used to sit down and review his ahadith, and he used to put effort in that. فالعلم is not something that you just are exposed to once and that's it. And all of us know here, we've all been through school, we've all been through courses, that the first read or the first time you are exposed to knowledge, you only leave with like 20%. طبعا I'm making up that number. It can be 20, 15, 30. By a week goes by, it might go down to like 5%. So you might say, well, okay, then I didn't really benefit much. Yeah, that's what happens really with ilm, with knowledge, right? In any field. طبعا we become accustomed to tell ourselves that, oh, خلاص, I've done it, خلاص, move on, right? But those people who really have the ilm stuck to them.
Does this change because to the volume?
The volume is too low?
Yeah.
But those who are, and the people who, back in the past, the ulama, the real ulama, they said that al-ilm is what's here, yeah, not what's on ChatGPT, what's on your internet, what's on Google, tamam. And that's what makes ilm difficult, and that's what makes ilm beneficial, to have it here in your head, in your chest, and in your heart, tamam. For some of you might have attended this with us last year. Who here attended this last year? Just out of curiosity. Who attended the Fiqh of Hajj and Umrah last year here in the masjid? You see, you're like, I don't know if I even attended it. I remember you were there. Anybody else was here last year for the Fiqh of Hajj and Umrah? Okay, you were here for all of them? We did about 3 sessions. Okay, that's not bad, alhamdulillah. But you will see that the proper way of seeking knowledge is that you go over it. Tamam? And so those people مثلا who've memorized the Quran, for example, the Quran, any حفاظ here, any حفاظ, تمام. طيب, any Quran that you memorize, and Quran, I chose Quran why? Because Allah وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ, Allah has made Quran easy for memory, but memorizing knowledge is not easy, and information, right, is not as easy as Quran, تمام. But Quran itself, those of you remember, when you memorize it, what happens in a few days? Khalas, you forgot it. 4 days, it's gone. It's like, oh my God, I read it 100% to my shaykh, after 4 days it's gone. That's why the Prophet ﷺ, he says, the Quran is like a camel, right? Al-mu'aqqal, right? You have to tie it. If you don't tie it, it's just gonna go. Assalamu alaikum, see you later, okay? The same thing with al-ilm, with knowledge. You have to go over it, subhanallah. It's interesting. Any readers here love to read books or listen to books? طيب, have you ever read a book twice? Anybody read a book twice? Yeah? SubhanAllah, like when you read the book second time, you'll pass through some things, you're like, I don't remember this. Like at all, you're like, I don't remember this. Because sometimes you read and you weren't even there. You were like in your holiday vacation, or you were thinking about something else, or what's for dinner. Tamam. But also because you forgot, subhanAllah. Even lectures or podcasts or whatever you have, or audiobooks, you hear it the second time, subhanAllah, right? I was listening to one of the mashayikh in Riyadh the other day. He wrote a book on nahu, on grammar, called the An-Nahu As-Saghir. It's about a beginner book about An-Nahu. And he was explaining the way to master grammar. طبعا Arabic grammar, when you say it, people freak out, even Arabs. Yeah, they're like, oh, please don't talk about it, get away from me. But that's, you remember when I was in Saudi, in the college of Sharia, we had to study grammar as well. And that was the weakest subject for all of the Saudis, all of them. Yeah, and the foreigners were actually better than them in grammar. Why? One of the reasons is they didn't study grammar together at once, and they might have went through one topic and then they never went over it again. And the ilm of grammar, the ilm of nahu, is an ilm that is it's what's the word for naam? Yeah, accumulative. You have to know what's before to understand what's after. You cannot go to i'rab until you understand the difference with how to recognize al-ism wal-fi'l wal-harf. You cannot do that. Tamam? And so he was saying that, he wrote this method. It's very short. He said you can read the actual text twice, between Asr and Maghrib, the whole book. But he was saying that the way to master it is you read it, مثلا, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. And then he said, then you listen to the lectures that he has put 5 to 6 times. Look now, some of you will be like, what do you mean 5, 6 times? Yeah, if you want to be proficient in it, tamam. And then he said, now you go listen to the explanation. You go read the explanation of the book, 3 to 4 times. And that depends on, some students are very, Allah has given them the way to understand things fast, and some of us are a bit slower, subhanAllah. But that's how someone, becomes proficient in ilm and knowledge, right? And so, we have this negative culture, that when we hear a topic that we've learned about before, we're like, I don't need it. And so you hear that there's a seerah class, like, oh, I've already studied seerah. And if you were asked to explain just the major bullet points of the seerah, you wouldn't be able to. Right? فعلم in general, Quran in general needs to be reviewed. But what about the rest of the ilm? Subhanallah. And we remind ourselves that we need to do that, and we remind ourselves that this is a ibadah. Right? And sometimes you studied it and you only applied 30%. When you study it the second time, aren't you more likely to apply more of it? Tamam? We need to kind of not have that negative mentality of relearning al-ilm. Because once you learn it, you forget it. Those of you, how many here have a bachelor's degree or a master's degree? Tamam? If I was to ask you, what's the percentage they remember for that information? Someone just, 0? Okay, 0. Anybody else? Anybody think it's more than 40% or 50%? You remember 50%?
50%, depends on the topic.
You probably only remember the things that you apply in your job. Tamam? Subhanallah. Yeah. The things that we apply, we don't forget. In elementary school, addition, subtraction, division, multiplication, these things you'll never forget because you've used them all your life. You never forget them. But the things you never used, for the engineers here, do you still remember how to do triple integration? Khalas, nobody remembers that. You did it once, you did it twice, khalas, it's gone. Subhanallah. Because now maybe you even use your ilmuhim, you understand what I mean? طبعا not every knowledge needs to be reviewed, but there's some ilm that needs to be reviewed. And because this is ilm shar'i, it's also going to motivate us and remind us about the importance of this ilm. I wanted to take this point just to remind myself and everybody here that there is a beauty in reviewing ilm and going over it, right? And the second time, third time, and that's how you get itqan and ihsan in that knowledge, right? And sometimes it takes you 3, 4 times just to really enjoy it. Yeah, the first time is just like, okay, excitement. Second time, it's a bit difficult. Third time, fourth time, maybe now you start to enjoy it and you start to understand the wisdoms of it. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. And of course,
structure of the mind also, I'd like to link it to a story or something like this. So the more you read, the more the stories start to appear in your head.
نعم صح. You start filling in the missing things and you connect it in your brain. صحيح. That's it. Exactly what it is. Subhanallah. فهذا هو العلم. This is علم. Subhanallah. You have to keep going over it. طيب. طبعا I want to start with a story. Last year we mentioned the story of a man who يعني subhanallah was ill, paralyzed, and then he tried everything. He was wealthy, right? Subhanallah, Hajj and Umrah have become somewhat easy for us nowadays, and sometimes we don't understand the struggle of it. Before we start talking about Hajj and Umrah, how many here have done Umrah? Raise your hand. So, yani maybe half, 50%. How many have done Hajj? Okay, maybe like 5%, 10% here. How many have done more than one Hajj? More than one Hajj, mashallah, tabarakallah. Was the second one easier or harder? Easier. Okay, easier. Easy or easier? Easier, صح? Subhanallah, like if someone wants to go to Hajj, they can just book, they can do it in how long? How long do you need to do Hajj? 5 days? 5 days, صح? Yani you just, technically all you can do is start from the 8th day, 9th day, 10th day, 11th, 12th, 13th, خلاص الحج, subhanallah. But have you thought about how Hajj was, a few decades ago, maybe 100 years ago? Yeah? When you read in the books of fiqh, the guy would put a condition on his marriage that if I don't come back in this many days, khalas, you are divorced, and my wealth goes to XYZ and whatever, and because he's considered maybe lost or dead, etc. Tamam. He might not even make it to and if he's going on foot. So subhanAllah, I was trying to go through some of the stories, and I came across this man, Al-Hajj Umar Tal. Anybody heard of him? He's from Mali, from Timbuktu. And this man, and many before him, this is in the 80s, I think, 1800s, sorry, 1840 or 18. He went all the way from Timbuktu, and we're talking about 6,000 kilometers. Now, just to make you understand, that's like 1,000 kilometers, like from here to, I don't know, Vancouver or something like that, right? From here to Vancouver is about, everybody agree with me? Anybody agree with me? It's about 1,000 kilometers. Takhayyal, you walked from here to Vancouver 6 times. It's just, it's crazy. You wouldn't even walk to Banff. Just to walk to Banff. It's a long distance. So this is like in the 1820s, right? And he was a scholar, actually. He was an alim, right? From the طبعا Timbuktu, for those of you who know some history, Timbuktu was a hub of Islam. Timbuktu, people used to send their young people to go study there. There was a hub of ilm. Nowadays you see Timbuktu, it's used as a place of somewhere in the middle of nowhere. Subhanallah. Like in Timbuktu, when you study about it, and I think one of the wealthiest men in history he came from there. Mansa Musa, I think his name was. It is said that he had so much gold that when he would visit like a city and he would give them like gold, he would like wreck the whole economy because he had so much gold, subhanallah. And it's also mentioned that he sent ships to South America, Muslims. Ilmuhim, that's history. We don't have time for that. So he wanted to do Hajj, right? And he wasn't wealthy. He was a poor man, and so he saved for years. And some say, I was reading some of his story. He saved for 7 years, and some of us even here, you hear stories of people who saved for 20 years. تخيل, we save, people save for a house, save for other things, but to save for Hajj, you really gotta want it. Because someone might say, well, it's not wajib until I have we'll talk about the conditions. It's not wajib until I have the money. Tamam? And so a lot of people now will, if they get a house, and then they get their brand new car, and then they go to all their Hajj, then it's like, okay, let me think of Hajj. Maybe I'm about to die, Like the way to understand Hajj, the proper way to understand Hajj as we see, is that it should be, because it's one of the pillars of Islam. Right? It's one of the pillars of Islam. It should be something that's on our mind. Someone would say, well, Sheikh, what are you talking about? It's 30,000 now. 30,000, something like that, right? 25K, it could be 20K maybe if you get the early...
20 to 21.
Yeah, the early, the cheap ones, right? It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. But you'll see, some of the virtues of Hajj will make you think twice about that. So, طبعا they went on foot. caravan, on foot. And تخيل now, if you understand, if you remember the map, I should have put a map maybe, but you're traveling from Mali, you're going through the Sahara Desert, Sudan, like the Red Sea, you're going like east, for you guys it would be that way. There's so many things that could go wrong. And he mentions that some of the companions, he didn't go by himself. You don't go by yourself. Nobody goes by himself. Some of them died. He went through Niger. Yeah, Niger, represent Sudan, right? The Red Sea, right? And he mentioned that some of them actually passed away. It took him 2 years to get there. 2 years, huh? From here to Mecca, you'll be there the next day. Subhanallah, right? 2 flights. This guy 2 years. Subhanallah. Just imagine that much. And remember that we're going to talk about the conditions. You have to leave enough wealth or money for your family that you're leaving behind, right? So he's not saving 7 years just for himself. He needs to save also enough for his family, because from the responsibilities, right, from the conditions is al-istita'a, okay, al-badaniyya wal-maliyya, like the physical and the financial. And within the financial, it includes the ride, the traveling, the food for yourself, the return, and for your family, protection, food, all those things. Imagine you told your wife, I'm leaving for 2 years for Hajj, we'll see you later, take care. They would freak out. Naam, you have a question?
Yeah, I just want to ask, for how long you need to save for the family? Let's say in the past it's 2 years, so he need to save 2 years for that?
So I mean, it depends. Do they have some kind of income? مثلا, someone has a store, مثلا, okay, and they've hired someone, and there's income coming from that, okay, and that income goes to the family, مثلا. Does he really need to save? Maybe he needs to save like a portion for emergency. But if they're getting income, or he has a business, tamam, okay. But if there is absolutely no income and his income is cut, then he needs to save for how long he estimates to be away. So nowadays it's so easy.
And if he passed away, what was the condition then?
If he passed away, what happens? Well, if he saved enough for that, after he passes away, خلاص, that's it's not. It's just normal, just like anybody passes away right now. It can happen out of nowhere, tamam. Then they take from his tadika, from his high, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take care of that family. But what's his obligation is to save for them what they need until he comes back. What they need until he comes back, right? So you do the math. Nowadays, if you're going for 2 weeks, طبعا nowadays it's so easy. Just most people just here's the card, وتوكل على الله, okay. They don't actually leave cash, but you understand. So it took 2 years. تخيل okay. And so when he was asked what kept you going 2 years, he said the ayah وأذن في الناس بالحج يأتوك رجالا وعلى كل ضامر يأتينا من كل فج عميق, right? The dua of Ibrahim, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him, called people to Hajj, and they'll come to you from every place. يأتوك رجالا by foot, or on the animals. وعلى كل ضامر يأتينا من كل فج, from every single place. وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. Right? When he asked, when he was asked, why did you risk everything? Literally, you're risking your life. Someone nowadays will say, well, I don't need to do it. There are people nowadays that are biking it and etc. Right? But those, it's not the same. There's proper roads. There's some, I think there was one guy who did it from Europe last year. It took him a few months. How long did it take him? A few months, right? Bikers and subhanAllah, someone might say, well, is that really, is that even permissible? Someone is putting themselves in danger? There's nothing making it haram. And if he's not putting himself in real danger, he's going there, he's prepared and stuff, there's no problem with that, inshallah. And he's rewarded for the steps, He says, when he was asked, why did you risk everything? He says, what is life worth if I don't die trying to meet my Lord at his house, subhanallah. So he really wanted to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a picture of the man, subhanallah. This is such a long time ago. طبعا, why Hajj and Umrah? Why are we studying Hajj and Umrah? طبعا, it's one of the pillars of Islam. Okay, one of the 5 pillars of Islam. It is obligatory in every Muslim that is able. Inshallah, we'll talk about who it's wajib on. And of course, now we're in the months of Hajj, right? And when we say months of Hajj, right, we know that the Hajj is in Dhul Hijjah, which is coming up. Right now we are, what's the date today? Today is what part of Dhul Qa'dah? 19th of Dhul Qa'dah, yeah? 20th? طيب. 20th of Dhul Qa'dah, mine says 19. 20th of Dhul Qa'dah, 1446. In 10 days to 11 days, right? Dhul Hijjah will start. Dhul Hijjah will start, and the blessed 10 days of Dhul Hijjah. But this is a good time for us to study. And unfortunately, many people only study Hajj and Umrah like a week before they go into Hajj, or a week before they go into Umrah. And it's not the same. It's not the same like the one who knows what they're doing versus the one who's like, reading from a pamphlet like while they're walking, It's a different experience, the one who goes or the one who's getting ready for it for a long time. طبعا these are the topics we want to be covering inshallah. Today we'll do the introduction, the virtues and wisdoms of Hajj and Umrah, the ruling and condition. That's when we will start inshallah from the book. We'll talk about al-ihram and the types of Hajj. Hopefully we will be able to cover that. Then next week we'll talk about the talbiyah, the miqat, the forbidden actions, the fidya. What is a fidya? Okay. What is prohibited? What is haram in the haram areas? Right, in the haram of Mecca, the haram of al-Masjid Nabawi. Entering Mecca. What do you do when you enter Mecca? What are you supposed to do? And then we'll have a description of Umrah, a description of Hajj, the pillars and obligation of Hajj. So this comes at the end. Once we've gone through the whole journey, then we'll go back and we'll see, okay, what are the pillars? What are the arkan? Right? What are the pillars and obligation of Umrah and Hajj, because they're different. Right? One of the most important things to understand is Arafah, because al-Hajj Arafah, and whoever misses Arafah, then there is no Hajj for them. And exiting ihram, how do you exit al-ihram? Because al-ihram is not something you can just exit, right? There's conditions for it, and there's ways to do it. And then we'll talk about the sacrifices, inshallah, al-udhiyah. They include the udhiyah and include the aqiqah and other things like that, the slaughtering of the animals. So inshallah, as mentioned, we'll go through these topics inshallah today. Let's start with kind of just like an introduction. So when we look at our fiqh journey, we've mentioned that our goal bi'idhnillah ta'ala is to go through all the topics of fiqh, right? And it takes some time, like inshallah that's the niyyah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from us. So far we've done at-tahara, we've done as-salah, we've done az-zakah, I don't know why I didn't cross that out, az-zakah, and we've done as-sawm, and now we're doing al-hajj. And remember when we talked about most books of fiqh, they divide al-fiqh in 4 parts, right? The acts of worship, al-ibadat, then al-mu'amalat, transactions and contracts, then fiqh al-usra, the fiqh of the family, right, and all the law of the family. And then we have criminal law and judicial procedures, and al-qada, right, al-jinayat, al-hudud. All these things are in usually the last chapter that is studied. And as we mentioned before, most people don't go through 2, 3, 4. And that's really one of the reasons why I wanted to go through. And by the way, this is like a beginner fiqh text that we're using, right? Aqsa al-Mukhtasarat is like the most abridged version of fiqh that you can go through, right? Very short book. The goal is for us to go through all of that. So inshallah, the goal is to finish Hajj. And some of the ulama, they put the book of jihad in the ibadat as well. And so inshallah, the intention is to do that after al-Hajj. I think Sheikh Hassan might be doing a few lectures after al-Hajj, right after Eid. If he does, we'll continue with fiqh of jihad right after that. If he doesn't, inshallah, we'll go straight after Eid, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. And then after that, we'll go into the mu'amalat. And the mu'amalat is a pretty long one. Okay, you're talking about like sales contracts and all those things, lending, borrowing, purchasing, conditions in the contracts. All those things are included bi'idhnillah ta'ala. And I think family law will also be very interesting for many of us, okay? Because many of us, we've got married and we have kids, and we never really studied the fiqh of family, the fiqh of marriage, right? The rights of the child, the rights of the mother, the rights of the rulings, all those things, we didn't really study them. And this one will also be interesting because, we know the law of the land here, but very few of us understand the law of Sharia, the actual laws. We hear about them in the news, we kind of hear them in the Quran, but what's the ruling, how does it work with all these hudud and jinayat? And so that will be also an interesting one to cover. طيب. So that's kind of our fiqh journey where we are right now. This is the book that we're using, أخصر المختصرات. The author is Muhammad bin Badr ad-Din bin Abd al-Haq bin Balban al-Hanbali. He's a Hanbali scholar, born in 1000 after al-Hijrah, 1597 in our Gregorian date, in the Salihiyah region of Damascus. He was known for his knowledge, hadith, fiqh, including mastery of the 4 schools. Yani this alim, rahimahullah, he was a master of the 4 madahib. Yani so when he wrote this book, and he was well aware of the other madahib, and this is the way of the ulama before us, subhanallah. He passed away in 1083. This is after Hijrah, 1672. Right? This is the book. This one here on the right, I mentioned it before. It's translated. This is just the acts of worship, translated by Sheikh Musa Ferber, and it's available, I think, online. You can purchase it as well. And the one I'm using right here, this is just an explanation of the book by Sheikh Ahmed al-Qaimi. He's a contemporary Hanbali scholar from Saudi Arabia. طيب. We begin kind of like with an introduction. And طبعا, I like to start with Hadith Jibreel. Jibreel alayhi salam, we know the story. This man comes, right, from the middle of nowhere. He comes, and it's very strange. He's coming, and usually when someone comes and nobody knows him in those times, if he's wearing white, it would be very dirty and messy. His hair would be disheveled, etc. But this man comes. He's a white clothing. It's clean. He looks like he wasn't traveling. Nobody knew him. Okay, he comes to the Prophet ﷺ, and he sits next to the Prophet ﷺ, knee to knee, right? And the Sahaba are watching, like, who's this man? Where did he come from, right? And so then he asked the Prophet ﷺ, Ya Muhammad, akhbirni an al-Islam. O Muhammad, inform me about al-Islam, right? And so the Prophet ﷺ tells him, al-Islamu an tashhada an la ilaha illallah wa anna Muhammadan Rasulullah wa tuqim as-salah wa tu'ti az-zakah wa tasuma Ramadan wa tuhijja al-bayta in istata'ta ilayhi sabila. He tells him, right? Islam means that you should testify that there is no God but Allah, and that Muhammad is his final messenger, which is ash-shahada, number 1. That you observe the prayer, as-salah, right? Was-zakah, right? Fasting in Ramadan, and to make the pilgrimage to the house if you have the means to go. Tamam. And so, of course, the hadith, the man says sadaqt, right? And they're like, okay, why is he asking if he already knows the answer? Taban, that's the long hadith of Jibreel, but this is one of the main adillah of wujub al-hajj, that is a pillar of Islam, one of the pillars of Islam. Taban, we know in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's many verses, from the verses, وَأَتِمُّ الْحَجَّ وَالْعُمْرَةَ لِلَّهِ وَأَتِمُّ الْحَجَّ وَالْعُمْرَةَ لِلَّهِ. Complete the pilgrimage and minor pilgrimage, which is al-umrah, okay, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you'll see that some of the Hanabila themselves, they use this as evidence to say that umrah is also wajib. Because they say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says complete al-hajj and umrah for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they say that this makes it wajib, right? Some of the ulama, other madhahib, they say that al-umrah is not wajib, okay? Only hajj is wajib. Tamam? And they say here, al-itmam, yani complete it if you start it. Yani complete it if you have started it, okay? And you see here how it's also, it's an acceptable position, okay? Because al-itmam is not like al-ifrad, to make something fard or wajib. From the other ayat, طبعا we know the story of Hajj, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told Ibrahim alayhi salam, right? Go call people to Hajj. وَأَذِّن فِي النَّاسِ بِالْحَجِّ يَأْتُوكَ رِجَالًا. This is in Surah Al-Hajj, Surah 22, right? This is the surah that has 2 sajdat tilawa, 2 prostrations of tilawa. وَأَذِّن فِي النَّاسِ بِالْحَجِّ يَأْتُوكَ رِجَالًا. Call all people to the pilgrimage, and they will come to you رِجَالًا. رِجَالًا يعني على الرجل, on foot, okay? وَعَلى كُلِّ ضَامِرٍ. And on every lean camel. يَأْتِينَ مِنْ كُلِّ فَجٍّ عميق. They will come from every distant path. Tamam. And طبعا Ibrahim said, oh Allah, I'm just going to go on the mountain, and who's going to hear me? Who's going to hear me? So it's mentioned in the tafsir of Ibn Kathir that Ibrahim said to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but my voice cannot reach all people. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responded, you make the call, and we will deliver the invitation to all people. So this is one of the miracles, right? That Ibrahim would call, and people would hear the call, and they would come to the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from every single from every single direction, and that call is still happening all the way from the time of Ibrahim until this time, subhanAllah. طبعا things happened, innovations, and then the Prophet ﷺ came to revive that, came back to revive this ibadah of al-Hajj, the pilgrimage to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Before we start, it's important to understand al-farq bain al-Hajj wal-Umrah. Everybody should understand that al-Hajj wal-Umrah, okay, that one of them is really short and one of them is pretty long. And when you think of Umrah, you should think of something that as quick as what? What's the fastest? Anybody timed their Umrah before?
2 hours.
Huh? 2 hours? Anybody beat that record? Huh? So you could literally do it in an hour. If you go the short circumference and you buy the Kaaba, okay, and it's not that full, right? And you don't have any kids on your back or you don't have any wives to wait for, tamam, and you just do it by yourself, you could probably take an hour. I don't know if anybody has done it in an hour, but you could do it in an hour. And sometimes it could take longer than 2 hours, 3 hours, because things can happen in between aslan. And things can happen in between. A salah might come in the middle of the salah, of the Umrah. And like in al-Hajj, we're talking about days, right? Also from the difference is what? Al-Umrah happens every day, every second of, from January 1st until December 31st, Umrahs are happening. Every single second, every single day, How about Hajj? Is it happening right now? Anybody doing Hajj right now? Huh? Is anybody doing Hajj right now? Nobody's doing Hajj. Okay? Because Hajj can only happen a specific time every year. A specific time every year. وطبعا the Gregorian calendar is going to move. Like in the Hijri calendar, it's the same, right? In the month of the Hijjah, with the Gregorian calendar, it's going to move. Tamam. But from some of the differences, right? Hajj is a journey to Mecca, commemorating the spirit of devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala performed by the Prophet Ibrahim and his family. It entails visiting Mecca and some other nearby regions, and it happens once a year between the 8th and 12th of the month of the Hijjah. It is attended by about 1 to 3 million. It depends on the year and the size. And it's subhanAllah, and this is something to be proud of as Muslims, that it's the largest gathering you can think of, where people from every country come, people from different regions, right? And they're coming to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all dressed up in the same clothing. When it comes to Umrah, it's a shorter version. So you can call it like a mini pilgrimage, okay? Tamam. And can take place at any time during the year, as we mentioned. The only time it was stopped was when? When was it stopped? Like COVID, right? COVID, or when there was the flu, a few years or decades ago, that major flu that happened, the Spanish flu, and other kind of diseases that spread. That's the only time that it was stopped, right? Or there was an attack on the Haram or something like that. Otherwise, it never stops. 24 hours. Literally the city that doesn't sleep is Mecca. It doesn't sleep 24 hours. 1 a.m. someone's doing Umrah. 2 a.m. someone's doing Umrah. 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 it doesn't stop, subhanAllah. The only time nobody's doing Umrah is when, like during Jum'ah maybe, during Jum'ah prayer, nobody's doing Umrah during that time, obviously, because they're sitting and listening to the khatib. But other than that, it's happening. And usually people who do Hajj, they also do Umrah. People who usually do Hajj, they also do Umrah. طيب. From the virtues and wisdoms. From the virtues and wisdoms, or the virtues of Hajj and Umrah, is that it erases all of the sins. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, "Man hajja, falam yarfuth, walam yafsuq, raja'a kayumi waladatu ummuhu." And this is one of the few ibadat that does that. It says here, "Raja'a kayumi waladatu ummuhu." Whoever performs Hajj and does not have sexual relations, this is al-rafath, okay? فَلَا رَفَثَ وَلَا فُسُوقَ وَلَا جِدَالَ فِي الْحَجِّ. This is from Surah Al-Baqarah. Similar to this hadith, he does no rafath, وَلَا فُسُوق, nor commits sin, nor disputes unjustly. He's not arguing with people and doing these kind of things. He returns from Hajj, okay, as pure and free from sins as on the day on which his mother gave birth to him. This is a mas'ala khilafiyya. Does this include major sins as well? What do you guys think? We have a no. Anybody says yes? Yes? Inshallah. So the Hanabila, a lot of the ulama, they say yes. There's a large portion of them that say yes, right? And some of them say no, okay, because we know that the major sins need specific tawbah. The major sins, like someone does zina or qatl, or murder, or anything like that, backbiting, these major sins, they need a specific tawbah. Tamam? But others said, well, it says كَمَا وَلَدَتْهُ أُمُّهُ. What does that mean? When you came out of your mother's womb, did you have any sins? Yani we're not like we don't believe like the Christians that we're carrying the sins of somebody else. You came free. You came out free. يعني كَمَا وَلَدَتْهُ أُمُّهُ. يعني this is صريح. And Nabi sallallahu made it very clear that he's sinless, subhanallah. And it makes sense because when someone goes to Hajj, if he did Hajj properly, what's he doing on Arafah? What's he doing in the month of Arafah? He's doing istighfar, tawbah, yani for hours. Yani it's not like a quick sajda, Rabbi ighfirli wa khalas, okay? He's sitting there and he's trying to remember all the things he did. Ya Allah, that night I did this, forgive me. So it makes sense, whoever does a proper Hajj, right? And he's not doing any other haram, and he's sitting there making tawbah on Arafah, and he's doing tawaf, and he's doing these things, and he's throwing stones, and one of the things that is on his mind is what? I need a clean slate. And by the way, that's why a lot of people in some of our cultures, once they're like, they can barely walk anymore, they go do Hajj. Why? Because they, they're like, khalas, I'm about to die, let me just, get rid of all the sins right now. So if I'm about to die, I have less sins, subhanAllah. Taban, that's the wrong way to think about it. Tamam. The right way to think about it is try to do as many hajjs as possible. Right? Sheikh, it's 25,000. What do you mean hajjs? Allah Kareem. If you really intend it, right? And I think we need to kind of be a bit more open and have more husn al-dhan, right? And remember, dear brothers and sisters, try not to be from those negative people, because if you are, you're missing out on a lot of reward. What do I mean by that? The person who is sitting down here right now, and he really wants to go to Hajj and Umrah, and in his heart he's like, Ya Rabb, I want to go to Hajj and Umrah, and he dies tomorrow. On his book of good deeds, what do you think is written there? It's written that he did Hajj and Umrah. And Nabi Sallallahu told us this. The one who makes an intention and he's not able to do it, it's written for him as if he did it. And the one who intends and does it, it's written as if he did it twice, subhanAllah, right? And Allah multiplies as much as possible. So there's no reason for someone to be stingy and cheap for himself and not make that niyyah, subhanAllah. Numbers are just numbers. It's for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's just numbers. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can drop that amount in anybody's bank account any day. SubhanAllah. How? Allah alam. You leave it up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Lakin, we know stories. One of the amazing things is that it erases all sins. Subhanallah. Ibn Qudamah here, he's one of the big scholars in the Hanbali madhab. He says, whoever performs Hajj as described, in the proper way, and he doesn't do rafath or fusuq, it expiates all sins, major and minor. And Ibn Qudamah is one of the big ulama in the madhab, the big ulama, he was written the major book Al-Mughni, right? That compares all the schools of thought. It really changes your perspective. And those who went to traveling in general, it opens your mind. You see what other people are going through. You see different conditions. You see the state of other people, right? Like when you go to Hajj and Umrah, you're meeting like people who are living on $1 a day, maybe. You're meeting people who are wealthy, rich, but you can't really tell. You're all dressed in white. And so it's one of the ways you can boost your iman, and it makes you feel like this is really one ummah. Oh my God, like look at this person, this guy could be a CEO, guy could be a millionaire, and this guy could be like, someone who's broke, student, mother, father, vice president, boxer, مش عارف ايش, soccer player. Everyone is there, subhanAllah, from every culture, from every color. Where can you see that anywhere? SubhanAllah, nowhere, like from every single country, right? Like there's quotas for every country on who can go, but pretty much from every country people are coming. SubhanAllah. It's one of the most amazing things. And I always like to mention this quote that was mentioned by Malcolm X. We all know Malcolm X, and Hajj is one of the major event that changed him, right? He had a really weird understanding of Islam, right? We know, if you read on the history of that movement, but he says when I went there, it really changed and opened him. SubhanAllah. He said there was tens of thousands of pilgrims. Remember that he was one of the people that was fighting that whole idea of black and white and the racism that was happening. He said there were tens of thousands of pilgrims from all over the world. They were of all colors, blue-eyed blondes to black-skinned Africans. For him, this is ajib. Because in America at that time, you know, the black man couldn't, sit in the same bus as a white person. Or they couldn't even stay, they'd have to stand or something like that. Tamam? But we were all participating in the same ritual. It's not like the whites were ahead of them or they had privileges, Displaying a spirit of unity and brotherhood. That my experiences in America had led me to believe never could exist between the white and the non-white. Subhanallah. When he was living in America, he's like, it's impossible for men and for black and white to be equal, to be able to do the same things, to be able to go to the same schools, right? To be able to go to the same churches and masajid and all those things. I don't know how it was in that time in the masajid, but it was very clear that they were not, just like what's happening, in Palestine right now. Like the Palestinian versus the Israeli, right? In the cities, right? That Israel has taken over. It's not the same. It's like you're a third, level citizen, right? So he said something that I couldn't imagine. America needs to understand Islam. Look what he's saying. America needs to understand Islam. If Islam came, there would be equality, right? Because this is the one religion that erases from its society the race problem. And we know this from the seerah. When the Prophet ﷺ came, there was racism in Mecca or no? There was racism. Look at this, the story of Bilal, right? And the Prophet ﷺ brought the black person and the white person and at the same level, right? And the only thing differentiating the people was what? At-taqwa. Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum, right? You may be shocked by these words coming from me, but on this pilgrimage, what I have seen and experienced has forced me to rearrange much of my thought patterns previously held. And it really changed the way he thought about the possibility. Oh my God, it is possible for blacks and whites to be equal, right? And one of the things that will bring that is al-Islam. That kind of mentality, subhanAllah. And طبعا Islam brought them on the same level way before all this, subhanAllah. One of the things is really, طبعا we know that a dua can be accepted in different times. But from the places that are really highly recommended, it will be accepted is in when you do Hajj and Umrah. And think of it even logically. SubhanAllah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like they say that from the best times to make dua is between al-iqama and adhan. Adhan and iqama. And Nabi Sallallahu said that la yurad. And it's not rejected, the dua between al-adhan and al-iqama. Right? Why? They say because Allah's calling you, hayya ala salah, hayya ala al-falah. And you answered the call, subhanallah. And because you answered the call, okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will answer your call, your dua. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is calling people. وَأَذِّن فِي النَّاسِ بِالْحَجِّ. Allah is calling people to come to His house, to Al-Kaaba. And when you answer that call, labbaik Allahumma labbaik, oh Allah, I'm answering that call, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is more, of course, more willing to accept it. The Prophet ﷺ says, Al-Ghazi fi sabilillah, wal-Hajj, wal-Mu'tamir, وفد الله دعاهم فأجابوه وسألوه فأعطاهم. The one who fights in the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the pilgrim performing Hajj and Umrah are a delegation to Allah. He invited them, so they responded to him, and they asked him, and he gives to them. Subhanallah. Especially on that day of Arafah, on that mount of Arafah, right? We know the hadith and subhanallah, du'as that are made on that day, they are not rejected. From the amazing things about Hajj and Umrah is it removes poverty. I know what you're thinking. How is minus 25,000 in my bank account removing poverty? But this is something from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The one who gave you everything you have is saying this. This is coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet ﷺ is a narration from the Prophet ﷺ. لكن it is وَلَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَى. This is coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For the Prophet ﷺ, he tells us that تَابِعُوا بَيْنَ الْحَجِّ وَالْعُمْرَةِ فَإِنَّهُمَا يَنْفِيَانِ الْفَقْرَ وَالذُّنُوبِ كَمَا يُنْفِي الْكِيرُ خَبَثَ الْحَدِيدِ وَالذَّهَبِ وَالْفِضَّةِ وَلَيْسَ الْحَجَّةِ الْمَبْرُورَةِ ثَوَابٌ إِلَّا الْجَنَّةِ. He even gave an analogy. He's like, it's like, when you want to purify gold, you put it in that heat, it's purified. That's exactly what Hajj does to your wealth. It purifies it from poverty. It literally increases your wealth. The Prophet ﷺ, he swore on three things. That sadaqah does not decrease your wealth. He swore on that. Like mathematically, it does. But he's telling you that when you give sadaqah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bless and give you more, subhanAllah. For the same thing, but here it says alternating. Yani someone who has that niyyah of trying to do that, yani doing some hajj and umrah, right? So a person should not say, oh, I did it once, khalas, now I can go to Disney and go to the hajj. No, try to have that niyyah to go as many times as you can. And that's one of the benefits is that it removes poverty and increases your wealth. From the benefits, طبعا we know that al-hajj al-mabrur, okay, is something that guarantees, right? Al-umratu ila al-umrah kathara lima baynahuma. Umrah between umrah, it expiates all the sins between them. Wal-hajj al-mabrur, right? The accepted hajj, right? One that is accepted, laysa lahu jaza'un illa al-jannah. ليس له جزاء إلا الجنة. This is al-hasr, right? That the only reward for it is Jannah. The one who does the proper hajj, the only reward for it is Jannah. So these are some of the wisdoms or some of the virtues of hajj. From the wisdoms, you can think of many of them, right? طبعا one of the places where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is remembered the most, right, is the time of hajj. The time of hajj. And we know that it's happening during those 10 blessed days. The best 10 days of the year, right? The 10 days of the Hijjah. Al-Hajj is happening in those days, subhanAllah. So the remembrance of Allah, which provides an immense, spiritual awakening and energy. The remembrance of the hereafter. One of the wisdoms of Al-Hajj wal-Umrah is that it's supposed to remind you of the Day of Judgment. That everybody is going to be, dressed the same. Everybody is going to be the same level. You're not going to have anything with you. Right? It's just you going to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everybody's going to have to stand and meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's a type of remembrance of the hereafter and the day we will be resurrected from the graves, naked without any of our worldly possessions that we left behind. You literally feel naked when you have your ihram on, especially for men. Like you're just wearing 2 pieces of cloth, that's it. You don't have any, you don't have your fancy jacket, your fancy pants, your fancy shoes. You're all the same, wearing the same 2 pieces of cloth, subhanAllah. But this reminds you of, it's supposed to remind you of the akhirah, that we're all going to be standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And this is something, it trains the person to feel what it means to sacrifice, right? For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because al-hajj, you're sacrificing what? Time and wealth, right? And your physical sacrifice. Salah is physical sacrifice. Are you paying money for salah? You're not, right? As-zakah is financial, right? But al-hajj combines between both. As-siyam is physical. Right? But Al-Hajj combines between the physical and the financial. Right? So it's really the combination of real sacrifice for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. طبعا from the wisdoms is that you get to see the other Muslims. Right? Ulama in the past and even now, it's an opportunity to seek knowledge. Right? One of the mashayikh that was here maybe a decade ago, I remember he told me, he said, I was trying to get an ijazah in Quran, in a specific qira'ah, He said, I did it in 3 nights there. I was looking for a sheikh, and a lot of the ulama will meet there. And he said, I read the whole Quran to this sheikh, and I got an ijazah in that time. Subhanallah. In that time I went for hajj, right? And you get to see the conditions, right? You get to see the conditions. You meet people from different countries, and you get to understand. And it's also a way of unity. Reminds us that we are one ummah. Inna ummatukum. إن هذه أمتكم أمة واحدة, right? طيب, the rulings of Hajj and Umrah. So, what time is the Iqamah? 23? طيب. So 33 is our Iqamah. So these are the things that we want to cover بإذن الله تعالى in the next 3 weeks. طبعا when we talk about Hajj and Umrah, we talk about the pilgrim himself. What are the conditions? How is he supposed to dress? The sunan, all those things. The rulings of Hajj and Umrah, okay? The actions for Hajj and the actions for Umrah, so we'll be talking about that. And then we'll be talking about the sacrifices, Al-Hadi, Al-Fidya, Al-Udhiyah, and Al-Aqiqah. What are the similarities between these things, right? Al-Hadi is the one that is done during Hajj. Al-Fidya is what's done as compensation, right? Al-Udhiyah is done when, right? For us, the non-Hajjis, it's done in the Yom al-Eid, the 10th day. And Al-Aqiqah is done for what? What's the Aqiqah done for?
Newborn.
The newborn, right? So what are the similarities? What are the differences? Inshallah, we'll be talking about that. The fuqaha, they put that in the... And this is pretty much a quick glance at Al-Hajj and Al-Umrah. So when you think of Hajj, right? You have your ihram, you got your tawaf, right? You have your sa'i, You have to go to Mina, Arafah, Muzdalifah. These are words inshallah we'll be going over, right? Going back to Mina, now you're on the 10th day, you're doing the sacrifice, al-udhiyah, you're cutting your hair, right? Trimming the hair. And then basically you're going for tawaf al-wada', you're throwing stones in the 11th, 12th, 13th day, right? And the farewell tawaf al-wada' here. And that's it. That's pretty much Hajj. Umrah طبعا is very short. Umrah basically is just 4 things. Your ihram, your tawaf, your sa'i, and your halq. 4 things. That's it. You're done. Umrah is very quick. Subhanallah. But al-Hajj, you've got days. You've got days. Tamam. And this is just another way of looking at it, right? All the steps until your farewell tawaf at the end of the 4 days or 5 days of your journey. So this is kind of just a quick glance of the journey بإذن ta'ala. And with that, now we start from Kitab al-Hajj wal-Umrah, right? And he says, يعني يقول المؤلف رحمه الله, may Allah have mercy on the author. He says, Kitab al-Hajj wal-Umrah. And as previously, we like to read from the Arabic, so people benefit, those who like to benefit from the Arabic, and then inshallah we'll kind of go over the English. So he says, rahimahullah, he says, يجباني يعني both of them, al-Umrah wal-Hajj, are wajib. يجباني على المسلم الحر المكلف المستطيع. So now he's talking about the conditions of Hajj. What are the conditions of Hajj and Umrah? And so he mentions 4 conditions. Technically you can make them 5, we'll see how. But he mentions 4 conditions. So he says, يجباني, it's wajib, or both of them are wajib, obligatory. Wajib يعني you have to do it, okay? On the Muslim, so that means the non-Muslim, it's not wajib on him, okay? Al-Hur, al-Hur meaning the free person, right? So someone who's a slave, it's not wajib on him. Someone who's a slave, it's not wajib on him. Al-Mukallaf, right? Al-Mukallaf, remember that word, what does it mean? It includes 2 things. Baligh, aqil, or aqil, baligh, both things. He's sane and he's pubescent, he's reached puberty, okay? So if you count those as one separately, it will make them 5, okay? And number 4 is al-Mustati'. Al-Mustati', al-istita'a, like the hadith says, لمن استطاع عليه سبيلا, right? And also in the ayat, right? Al-istita'a is the ability, and that includes financial and physical, okay? So again, Muslim, hur, Muslim, free, okay? Mukallaf, it includes 2 things. Al-Mukallaf, the one who is responsible now, okay? Al-Mukallaf is the one who will be held accountable. At-Taklif is to be held accountable. Who's the one who's held accountable? It has to be 2 things. He has to be baligh, someone who's reached puberty, right? In the madhab, anybody remember the madhab, if no signs show, what's the age? Plus 12 plus 3, 15. If you reach 50, if you don't show any signs, the hair, right, wet dream for the male, yani, or the woman, her cycle, if those things don't show up, then they go by the age of 15, okay? Khalas, he reached the age of 15, now he's baligh. Okay, he's responsible. Yani now he's responsible to pray. He's responsible now if he has money, maybe he has an inheritance, he's able, he needs to go do Hajj. Okay? So this is pubescent, yani baligh. Wal-aqil, he has to be sane. Meaning the insane person, the majnoon, right? Someone who's insane, okay, or crazy, then it's not obligatory on him. Tamam? And then of course number 4, al-istita'a. Taban, you can be financially able but not physically able. And you can be physically able and not financially able. So you have to be physically and financially able. Now there's some specific things regarding if you're financially able and you're physically not able, then it's still obligatory on you to find someone who can do it. And we'll talk about if is it temporary inability, physical inability, or is it a long-term inability. Then there's different conditions. You see some letters there. That's basically when we talk about conditions, shurut yani. There's shurut that are there for wujub, for obligation. So obligational conditions, okay? Like the ability, okay? When you have ability, now it's obligatory on you. Yani it's a condition for obligation. But some of the conditions are conditions for validity. Yani for them, they have, if they're there, then it's valid. And if they're not there, it's invalid, okay? Like Islam and sanity, right? And some of them are conditions of ijza', yani yujza', the main Hajj al-Islam. When we say Hajj al-Islam, meaning the obligatory Hajj, okay? Otherwise, it might be a nafil hajj or nafil umrah, okay? But there are conditions that, like puberty, for example, he has to be pubescent throughout all of the steps. Throughout all of the steps, otherwise it won't count as. So again, the conditions are Muslim, free, okay, pubescent and sane, and he's able financially and physically, okay? And I think we'll probably stop there. Bi'idhnillah ta'ala. It's time for adhan, but we'll take maybe 2 or 3 questions before we call it a day. Any questions on what we've covered so far? Or not?
For females, it's also the mahram, right?
Yeah, so it's coming up. Yeah, there's an extra condition for the woman, which is the mahram. And so if she doesn't have a mahram, we'll talk about it next week. Then it's her, and she's financially able. Okay, then it's her responsibility to hire someone. Okay. طبعا there are some ulama that will allow her to go, right? The whole question of safar. هل يجوز للمرأة أن تسافر بغير محرم? Is it allowed for a woman to travel without a mahram? Okay. The hadith in Bukhari it's very hard to go against it. It's very clear, right? But the problem is, what is a safar? What is considered a safar? And some of the ulama, they only allow a woman to go without a mahram only in religious travel that is in a group and is safe. Like for Umrah and Hajj, that she goes in a group with a lot of other women and friends and relatives, or a strong companionship, and they're together the whole time. Those are the only ways that some of the ulama will allow it. Wallahu ta'alam. But the only other way, it would be a darura. When can a woman travel without a mahram? If it's a darura. What do you mean darura? Like a necessity, or like a dire need. An example, for example, a woman is living, مثلا, I don't know, she's a Calgarian, she lives in Qatar, her husband works there, and her husband passes away. Right, how is she going to get back? Maybe she has no relatives there. So she stays there forever? No, she can come back. Okay, this is a necessity, a dire need for her. She wants to come back to her family here. Okay, she can travel without a mahram. Wallahu alam. These are some of the times that a woman can travel without a mahram. Any other questions? أسئلة تمام طيب بارك الله فيكم والعصر الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر جزاكم الله خير إن شاء الله we'll continue next week والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته